Hello everyone, so this is the tutorial for quiz 7. The first question is a system of linear equations. Solve it by substitution method. And this is very straightforward because the second equation here is already giving you what to substitute. So obviously we're going to substitute y with negative 3x plus 24 in the first equation here. So I copied the first equation here and I put y in parentheses and just delete it, and instead of y I just put negative 3x plus 24 and then solve it that way. So when I do that in this equation, there's no more two variables, we're down to just one variable, which is x. So the first thing we need to do here is distribute this negative 3 over these parentheses, because this is essentially negative 3 times everything inside. So that would mean negative 3 times negative 3x would turn positive 9x, and then negative 3 times 24 would turn negative 72. So here we can just combine the like terms, 9x plus 9x, that just makes 10x minus 72 equals negative 2. And then here I would add 72 to both sides, right? So adding 72 to both sides would just cancel out this 72, and over here, let me just add plus 72 and then plus 72. So these are now cancelled, and this makes just plain 70. And then last step, just divide both sides by 10 and you get x equals 10. So we got x equals 10, and if x is 10, you can just plug that into the second equation, either one actually. So if x is 10, you got negative 3 times 10, which is negative 30. And then negative 30 plus 24 is negative 6. So then y equals just negative 6. So the solution is, as an ordered pair, you would write x first and then y second, 10 comma negative 6. That's your answer, A. Actually, it looks like I made a mistake here. X is not 10 here, x is 7. So when you divide both sides by 10, 70 divided by 10 is 7. So then most likely y is wrong too. So x is 7. If x is 7, you got negative 3 times 7, which is negative 21. And then add 24 to that, you got positive 3 for y. So the answer is 7 and 3. Alright, the second question is another system of linear equations, and it says solve by the addition method. So that means, and I copy these equations here, so what we're going to do is add these side by side. So if I add these side by side, so what I get here is 4x plus 3x, which makes 7x. And then 14y minus 14y, they cancel each other out, so that's just a big 0 here, which we don't need to write. And then on the other side I got 16 plus 12, which is 28. So I have 7x equals 28, and if you divide both sides by 7, you get x equals 4. So x is 4, what is y? Go back to your original equations and plug in x equals 4 in either one of these. Let me do it on the top equation here. So if x is 4, then I put x in parentheses and just replace it by 4. So that would give me 4 times 4 is 16 plus 14y equals 16. And then you subtract 16 from both sides, which means this 16 will be cancelled. You only have 14y left on this side, and the 16s on this side will also cancel, so you got 0. And then 14 times y equals 0, that means y must be equal to 0. So as an ordered pair, again, write x first, which is 4, and y next, which is 0. 4, 0 is the right answer. Question 3, solved by substitution or elimination. So let me copy these equations. So here, I would actually use elimination, because you see here we have a negative 10x and we have a 40x. So if I can turn this into negative 40x, then they would cancel each other out. So, and we can easily do that. All I have to do is just multiply this top equation by 4. So if I multiply this whole equation by 4, then it's going to turn into, so 4 times negative 10x is negative 40x, and then plus 4 times 2y is 8y, and then equals 4 times 1 is just 4. See, now I have these two equations. If I can add these side by side, negative 40x, positive 40x, they cancel out. We got a 0. Positive plus 8y minus 8y, they too cancel out. I only tried to cancel out x's, but coincidentally the y's also got cancelled. So we got 0 equals 4 minus 3, which is positive 1. So I ended up having all of the variables eliminated, so there's no variables left in the equation, and I ended up with something like this, 0 equals 1, which not true, right? So it doesn't make sense, not true. So when you have this kind of a situation, the answer is there's no solution, so you would pick C. Question 4, another system of equations. So here, just like the problem says, we can actually find the solution mentally without using calculator or pen and pencil. So let's just try to do that. Since in the first equation the coefficient of y is 0, that means y is going to disappear. So you have only 9x equals 8. If 9x is equal to 8, you can divide both sides by 9 and you get x equals 8 over 9. So that's the fraction answer. X equals 8 over 9. 8 divided by 9. And in the second equation, this time the coefficient of x is 0, which means that's going to disappear. And the equation gets simpler, which is just 6y equals negative 5. So if 6y equals negative 5, we can divide both sides by 6 because we're trying to get y isolated. So y would be equal to negative 5 divided by 6. So the unique solution to the system is, you would say 8 over 9 as a fraction and negative 5 over 6. So that's the solution. Question number 5, we're given this graph of an inequality. So which one of these is the correct inequality for this graph? So if you notice, all of these inequalities are exactly the same. They all have 9x plus 5y on this side and then negative 45 on the other. The only difference is the inequality sign. Is it going to be less than, greater than, equal to, or not? So we can easily identify this sign by just looking at the graph. This line is a solid line. It's not dashed. So if it was dashed, it would have been either less than or greater than. But if it's solid like this, then it has to be either greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So we know, since this is a solid line, it's either B or D. So how do we know if it's greater than or equal to or less than or equal to? So we just test the point, and usually the easiest point to test is 0, 0. So 0, 0 is here. It's easier to test because when you plug that in, x and y, they all disappear. And because 0, 0 is inside this shaded region, when I test that point, in the end, the inequality I end up with should be a correct one because it's supposed to be part of the solution because it's inside the shaded region. So let's look at B. When you have 0, 0, this whole side becomes 0, and you get 0 is greater than or equal to negative 45. Is that correct? Yes, 0 is greater than any negative number. So B seems to be correct then. If you try D, you would get 0 less than negative 45, but that's not true. So the answer would be B. Question 6. X is the number of students in the finite math class, and Y is the number of students in calculus. So enrollment in finite math plus calculus is less than 850. So you would just write x plus y equals, not equals, less than 850. So that would be the answer, x plus y less than 850. So we need to graph this inequality. First of all, we need to find the x and y intercepts. So if you plug in 0 for x, you get negative 30y equals 1800. So divide both sides by negative 30. You actually get negative 60. So on y-axis, find negative 60. So down here, that's negative 50. So this is negative 60. So I mark that with red. And then same way, we need to find x-intercept by plugging in 0 for y. And when you do that, you get 12x equals 1800. 1800 divided by 12 is 150. So 150 is on x-axis, you got 50, 100, 150. That's where x-intercept is. So notice this is greater than. There's no equal to. There's no line underneath. So it's going to be, we need to connect these two dots, but it's not going to be a solid line. It'll be a dashed line. Something like this. So I can't do a straight line, but you get the idea. So it's a straight line connecting these two intercepts. And now we need to decide which side should be shaded. Should it be this upper side or should it be this bottom side? And how do we decide? We just pick a point and test. And remember, the easiest point to test is 0, 0. If 0, 0 is, if it turns out to be a solution for this inequality, then I have to shade the side that includes 0, 0, which is the upper side. If it turns out to be not a solution, then I will exclude it, meaning I have to take the bottom side, excluding 0, 0. So plugging in 0, 0 would give me 0 greater than 1800, which is not true. So it's going to be this bottom side. So it's like here, here. So all this bottom side is shaded. And notice there is non-negative restrictions. X and Y are both positive. So if they are positive, that means I can only take this part and everything in between. So this is my shaded region, but also remember this is going to be a dashed line. Okay, so this blue part is the solution.